LSU wide receiver Malik Nabers dominated his pro day. Will he be the first wide receiver drafted? We're going to answer that question on today's edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. Let's roll.
You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to a Thursday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. I am one of your hosts, Tyler Rowland, local expert for the Locked On Titans podcast, here with my co-host, Alex Clancy, local expert from Locked On Cardinals. Thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen each and every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. We're going to talk about Malik Nabers' standout performance at LSU's Pro Day. Jaden Daniels also looked pretty good as well. And then we have a Locked On NFL draft, mock draft to go over. We're going to look at the best picks. We're going to look at the worst picks. So a lot to dive into. Alex, you are one of the perfect people to talk to about this Malik Nabers situation, because the team that you cover so intimately is the Arizona Cardinals. Locked On Cardinals, go check it out. But they're probably going to have a decision to make between Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Nabers. And that decision became much more difficult on Wednesday. Again, at LSU's Pro Day, Malik Nabers, great measurements. He came in at 6 foot tall, 199 pounds, so great size when people thought he might be a little bit shorter. Explosive 40-yard dash, 4.35 unofficial, 42 inches in the vertical jump, 10.9 in the broad jump. He's clearly one of the most explosive athletes in the entire NFL draft. I mean, if not the most. He was explosive, productive. He ran good routes, a yards after catch threat. He's a versatile guy from LSU. He proved it all at his pro day. And there's some conversation that he will be the first wide receiver taken off the board. Now, we talked about this last week. I don't necessarily buy it. I would still go with Marvin Harrison Jr. But you, Alex, if you're in control of the Arizona Cardinals, and, you know, what do you think the Arizona Cardinals should do here? Would you take Nabers after this performance?
Sorry, I just fell asleep. I mean, that's fantastic. And this is comparing you watching a movie trailer to seeing a full movie and be like, oh, that movie's better than that one.
Right.
That's all this is. We haven't seen anything from Marvin Harrison Jr. aside from his tape at Ohio State. So while, yes, all joking aside and my snoring aside, Malik Nabers he's got it. He's got it. As a wide receiver, you need to be better than you needed to be 5 years ago coming out of college to be taken seriously. There's no real learning curve. He's going to be drafted as the number one wide receiver wherever he goes. And that's something that is new. Players are more ready now than they've been for the wide receiver position. And it's because, the college offenses have changed wildly. Though this is the West Coast offense on steroids, which is completely different with the numbers.
Less physical in the NFL too, so that makes it easier for younger rookie wide receivers to come in and make an impact,
Especially without tape yet from defensive coordinators, defensive head coaches, things like that in the rookie year. Now with that, Tyler, no. It's too far gone. There's nothing that anybody can show that would trump Marvin Harrison Jr.'s college tape, because we've seen nothing since.
Right.
And it seems dumb. It's like, well, why did Marvin Harrison Jr. do the combine? Why did he do the pro day? Shut up. He didn't need to. Malik Nabers, Rome Odunze, guys like that still want to go top 5. Marvin Harrison Jr. is 1,000% going top 5. He didn't have to show anything else. Now, having said that, seeing what Malik Nabers did, does it maybe just widen shrink the margin of oh boy, if he can do this, MHJ is going to have to really replicate at an NFL level what he did in college. Tyler, bottom line is the NFL wins. Everybody wins when there are more guys like that. And I just don't know. And I'm going to say one last thing, and I'm going to get back to you. We've talked about this, and we're usually a little bit ahead of the curve on these things. This is the new quarterback position. The money, the high draft picks, and everything in between, where it's like you need a Robin to the Batman every year. You need a Robin. Who's the second best quarterback? Who's going to go second? Now with wide receivers, it's going to be the same damn thing. And I don't know if it's just a pub. I don't know if it is, but what he showed today yesterday is the dude can ball and he's ready for the NFL game. And that's what's most important. But do I think he's going one? No. Do I think he's going first? No.
No, I'm with you. And like we talked about last week at the end of the show, I'm still taking Marvin Harrison Jr. over Malik Nabers. But the question is, if the Cardinals do stick with MHJ, as you're talking about, who do you think is a better fit for Malik Nabers? The Chargers or the Giants?
Yes. Not the Giants.
Right.
Not the
Seeing
Giants.
Justin Herbert and Malik Nabers together would be pretty exciting, even if it's a run-first offense.
Right.
With
Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. You know, I mean, I think the Giants could use him very much so too, but the Giants need a true number one wide receiver as well, which I think Malik Nabers can be, but that physical, you know, I think that Nabers is best moving him around as a Z receiver off the line of scrimmage, get him in the slot a little bit too, but Rome Odunze can be that pure X wide receiver on the line of scrimmage, isolated like Marvin Harrison Jr., and that may be more appealing to the New York Giants as well. Either way, great wide receivers available. Going to be very fun to watch them go together, but Malik Nabers definitely, if he didn't take over wide receiver one, I agree with you. He shortened the window, and there are definitely some people around the league who would at least consider
which is great.
him.
We all win.
Yeah,
we
which is great
win
for everybody. Yeah. Lastly, I just want to mention Jaden Daniels because we're talking all Malik Nabers. The reality is Jaden Daniels is a guy who's probably going to get picked before Malik Nabers, the quarterback from LSU. Came in at 6'3", 210 pounds. So he put on some good weight. That's all good size. There were 9 Patriots members from the organization at the thing. Basically, the entire NFL was at LSU's pro day because more than just these two, there were so many players to take a look at. Jordan Jefferson, the defensive lineman, was good. Mekhi Wingo, stuff like that. But if you had to pick a perfect fit for Jaden Daniels, what team would you have him with?
Oh, yuck. I mean, not only are the teams bad towards the top, there's no path to them being good.
Right.
And that's the tough,
Chicago,
but Chicago's picking Caleb Williams, I'm taking that away. Like, they've built the infrastructure to be good. Okay. Washington is a mess. The Patriots are a mess. The Giants are a mess. So it's not like, and listen, these things can be shifted in 2 years. The Cardinals are no walk in the park, but they're not looking for a quarterback. So they're removed from this conversation. Like, Tyler, you look at Washington, they got a bunch of money. They spent it on guys who aren't really super impactful. They got a retread head coach and coordinator. We don't know what Cliff Kingsbury is going to be able to do with a young quarterback. Okay. The Patriots have Drake Maye, who's loved by everybody in that locker room. Okay. We don't know what he's going to be as a leader. We don't know what that offense is going to look like. They've got no real skill position players that can make it easier on a young quarterback. And the Giants, of those 3, I would say the Giants are probably the best because Brian Daboll's at least established.
Yeah.
They can run the ball. They've got a good offensive line. They're getting better on defense. But, I would probably say the Giants just by de facto because those other 2 are such messes.
I agree with your assessment, and that's why my answer is the Minnesota Vikings. If they can move up and get Jaden Daniels to immediately pair him with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, I mean, in that offense, I think that would be fantastic. So I agree with you 100%. The best fit for me is the Vikings. So hopefully they're able to make that trade up with New England, maybe get Jaden Daniels, because despite the hype, I still have Drake Maye going number 2 to Washington. But we're going to see it all unfold. Speaking of it all unfolding, we got a mock draft from our guys over at Locked On NFL Draft.
Woo!
It's a good one. We're going to dive into our favorite picks and our least favorite picks. Before we do, though, I do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the best place to buy tickets, my favorite place to buy tickets. They have great features. They have killer last-minute deals. They have all-in prices, so you actually pay what the price of your ticket says that it is. They give you a view from your seat so you know what you're going to be looking at when you sit down. And they have their Game Time guarantee. If you find tickets for cheaper in the same section and row, they're going to credit you 110% of the difference. So make sure that you take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use the code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Football fans, let's continue a Thursday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. We talked about LSU's Pro Day and how impressive both of those guys were. Now we got to dive into a mock draft. All right, from our guys over at Locked On NFL Draft. I mean, obviously, it is the perfect time for you guys to get subscribed, stay subscribed to Locked On NFL Draft. But before we get into that, thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen. Again, it's your team every day here, Monday through Friday, NFL content all year round, always for free. You're not going to beat that anywhere else. But pulling up the first half of this mock draft from our guys over at Locked On NFL Draft, Caleb Williams going number 1, J.J. McCarthy going number 2 to Washington. Jaden Daniels going to the Patriots, number 3. The Vikings do trade up to number 4 with Alex's Arizona Cardinals and get Drake Maye. We got Marvin Harrison Jr. at 5, Malik Nabers at 6. So a good start here. We see some defensive players go off the board throughout the mid rounds. A really eye-opening pick here. The Broncos take Bo Nix at number 12. Quinyon Mitchell at 13 to the Raiders. Some picks that stand out. We got the back half of the draft. We see some cornerbacks go off the board. Brock Bowers to the Bengals. Kool-Aid McKinstry, Tyrion Arnold, Nate Wiggins, TJ Tampa all go off the board from 17 down to 32. The Chiefs take Armarius Mims. You got J.C. Latham going to the Cardinals. Adonai Mitchell to the Lions. A lot of recognizable names going here on the back end of the draft. Alex, looking at this draft, and feel free to tell me which part of the picks you want me to put up. Is there a pick that stands out to you as the best pick, the pick that you like the best?
Yeah, can you pull up that second screen, please? Because this shows how, like, just let's take a second, hold hands and sing Kumbaya for how damn deep this first round is.
Yeah.
Like,
very good
all
draft.
of these guys, you could flip 17 to 24 and 25 to 32, and it could easily go that way also. So I think for me, the way it falls, Chop Robinson to the Ravens at 30 makes me salivate. Like, if he gets past the Cardinals at 27, pick. I'm going to have a conniption. Okay? Chop Robinson, what he did during the combine was show how fast he is, how much of it, like, especially in a draft class for edge rushers that isn't as deep as we've grown accustomed to over the last couple seasons. Chop Robinson out of Penn State is a dude that you can just plug and play. Now, the Latu from UCLA had a 2-year medical reprieve from football and is now back. He's a super popular guy for the Cardinals, getting mocked at 23. I'd much rather take Chop Robinson at 23 instead of Latu at 23 with his medical history. What about you? Well, what's one of the 6?
Interesting. For me, the number 1 pick that stands out is the Vikings trading up for Drake Maye at number 4. I think Drake Maye is the second best quarterback. I think that while he has some moments on tape where you're like, what are you doing out there? His abilities, his arm strength, he has good mobility. I just think he's everything that you're looking for. And to put him in the Minnesota Vikings situation with Kevin O'Connell's offense, with the play action heavy, the bootlegs, getting him on the run, letting him find guys open and power at home with a strong arm. He's got good ability to throw it down the field with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and their speed on the outside. I think that would be an excellent fit for the Minnesota Vikings. Another thing that stands out to me is Marvin Harrison Jr. going to the Chargers. With them getting rid of Mike Williams, with them trading Keenan Allen, I think having Marvin Harrison Jr. and adding him, and Jim Harbaugh did see Marvin Harrison Jr. ball out against him, multiple times. So I think that with the need, I know that the Chargers and everyone's talking about offensive line with them and everything. I think if they get Marvin Harrison Jr. at number 5 to be their number 1 wide receiver, to build that wide receiver core around after what they just got rid of this offseason, I think that would be an absolute home run. Of course, Joe Alt to the Tennessee Titans. It's a very common mock draft pick as someone who covers the Titans. That is my favorite option out of everything that could happen for the Titans. So Joe Alt at number 7. Those are some that stand out early on in the draft for me.
Cooper DeJean to Indy, I think, is another one at 15. That's one that he's been mocked. He's been mocked within like a 10 or 12 pick window. It's like the cornerback hierarchy is going to be fascinating to see where it actually falls out. He went to a Big Ten school. Iowa had a good defense. And I think he was all-world. He was an all-world quarterback in high school. So that kind of shows if you have that brain as a quarterback, that could only help the next level when you play on the other side of the ball. Now, Tyler, pivoting to, I talk a lot
for the same height.
Pivoting to the not so great picks for me. Can you pull up the first half, please, of the first round?
Well, hold on now, Alex. Hold on now. You're jumping the gun on me here. All right. We're going to get into the picks that we don't like at the end of the show, but I got a couple more. I'm staying on this positive train.
Okay.
I got a couple more picks that I still do like, and they're at the back half of the draft. So number one, the Bengals taking Brock Bowers. The Brock Bowers conversation has been crazy, but to me, tight end is a luxury pick. I heard somebody somewhere say that it's like eating your dessert before your vegetables. You know what I mean? But the Bengals are in a position where they are going for it. All right, they add Trent Brown at offensive tackle to go with Orlando Brown. They could still add an offensive tackle. They could still add to the offensive line. But for me, no. You go ahead and you add Joe Burrow has not had a great tight end ever. So you add another pass-catching weapon, and they're losing Tyler Boyd. I think that the reality is Brock Bowers is probably a big slot wide receiver more than he's a pure tight end or anything like that. So the Bengals getting Brock Bowers at 18, I think is an excellent fit. The Lions getting A.D. Mitchell out of Texas. Mitchell. Yeah, they just lost Josh Reynolds. Obviously, you have Amon-Ra St. Brown. You have a guy in Jameson Williams who you hope starts to take off. But Adonai Mitchell, adding him to replace that Josh Reynolds role, I think that's huge at number 29 for the Detroit Lions. That would be a great fit for them. And finally, Talisa Fuanga going to the Dallas Cowboys at number 24. For me, I like Fuanga as one of the top 3 tackles in this draft. For him to drop behind Troy Fontanu, not behind, but close to J.C. Latham, all of that. Olaf Fashanu, I think I would take Fuanga over Olu Fashanu. So to see Fuanga drop all the way to 24 and for the Cowboys to add to the offensive line, those are some other picks that I really, really like. Trust me, I can't wait to go over the worst picks in this mock draft, the picks that I hate. But there were some good picks at the back end of the draft there that I thought were great fits. Yeah,
and the last one, it's just, if it went like this at 17, you don't have to pull it back up. The Rams taking Jared Verse.
Yeah.
Just another pass rusher off the edge that's going to be a stud in the league. He doesn't have that pop. He doesn't have that circumstance. He doesn't have that, a je ne sais quoi before the draft. All he's going to do is come in and be a stud, edge rusher, and that's how the Rams eat. That's what they do. They trade for stars. They draft the no-names, quote unquote, compared to the other big names coming out of draft for whatever reason. And put it this way, the theme of the first 2 segments of this show is we all win. Everybody wins with this first round. It's going to be wild to predict. The trades are going to be insane, and every single team that has a pick in the first round is going to get a plug-and-play player right away, more times than not. Alex Clancy, Locked on Cardinals. Tyler Rowland, Locked on Titans. We make up Locked on NFL Thursday. Tyler did not like a couple landing spots for a couple players. We'll discuss those next we roll on here. Locked on NFL Thursday. This episode of Locked on NFL Thursday is brought to you by FanDuel. Say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney. We have the Sweet 16 later this afternoon. Good luck with your long shot. Good luck with your outright winner pick. But FanDuel has you covered with all of it. Is it going to be UConn, or are they going to continue to just mow down opponents? You're going to have a team like Purdue right the ship on their history. Is there going to be a no-name? Is it going to be Duke? Is it going to be, other blue bloods, Alabama? Either way, FanDuel's got you covered with all of it. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all, as I just mentioned. It's time to go dancing on America's #1 sports. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. I jumped the gun. I got excited. I like to go negative sometimes. I saw a couple picks I wasn't too happy with, and I'm like, well, Joe Marino. We have so many smart people with the Locked On Podcast Network. Obviously we work with the NFL side. It's just fascinating to see inside the brains of draft guys who know so much more about this than I do, and it's so fascinating. They have to cover. Not only does he do Locked On Bills, but he does Locked On Draft, and this is kind of what. This is where he eats, and the mock draft that he laid out for us is just fascinating. Thanks for making Locked On NFL your first listen, free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Do want to give Tyler a little baby shout out here. He's got a new film breakdown YouTube channel. If not just for Tennessee Titan fans, this is just a classroom where Tyler yells at you all information that you need to know if you want to learn how to break down film. And his most recent one with L'Jarius Sneed, who was just acquired by the Titans, is another. I watch one. I'm like, man, I'm learning so much stuff. Check it out. Is it at Tic Tac Titans? Is that the handle?
Yes.
Yeah. And he's got swag now too. So
yeah.
if you want a little Tic Tac Titans on your chest, check it out. Anyways, Tyler, I'm gonna go first. Because this is an Arizona Cardinals landing spot that I don't understand. Okay, it's number 11, Brian Thomas Jr. While he has the makings and the rumblings to be a fringe wide receiver one, just because Malik Nabers plays on the same team doesn't mean it couldn't be a Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase situation. While it's not going to be at that level, most likely, I can't see the Cardinals drafting a receiver at 11 right after they traded back with the opportunity to draft Marvin Harrison Jr., regardless of the draft of the capital that they get back.
Right.
I can't see that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You agree?
I do. If you want wide receiver, like the Cardinals already have 2 first-round picks. All right. Mm-hmm. If you want a wide receiver, I think if they wanted Brian Thomas Jr., it would be better to take whatever position you really want up front and then trade back up with 27 and then go get Brian Thomas Jr. in the mid-teens. You know what I mean? There's no way that you want a wide receiver and you pass on Marvin Harrison Jr. or Malik Nabers to pick up number 23 and go down to Brian Thomas Jr. I just don't think that the juice is worth the squeeze there. I'm taking the better players. Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think that would be a smart move. If the Cardinals move back from 4 and take another position, I don't think it would be wide receiver. I mean, obviously, you know the needs better than me.
Yeah, and the only little wrinkle there, which is I've come to my favorite trade back scenario, is the Cardinals get that package, 11-23 and a 2025 one, and they take 11 and a third-round pick and move back up to 8 and draft a wide receiver there from Atlanta because Atlanta's pretty much ready to go. Yeah, I mean, because it's a carbon copy of last season, and there's a chance that Rome Odunze would be there at 8. That is the best-case scenario for a non-Marvin Harrison Jr. wide receiver draft in the first round. I don't see it being anybody else outside of maybe taking one at 27 on the back end of the first round.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. For me, and those watching on YouTube can see the marker and the rundown on the right-hand side. But to me, the worst pick of this by far is J.J. McCarthy to the Commanders. I mean, McCarthy is the least physically gifted of the 4 big quarterbacks, Williams, Daniels, May, and McCarthy. So to put him on the Commanders, who may be the worst situation, and what is he going to do? Like, J.J. McCarthy is a guy who's going to need elite talent around him. I don't know why people are convincing themselves that J.J. McCarthy is more than what he was at Michigan. Like, why do we do this game? He's a team. He literally was minimized by his team so that they could win a championship. And we think that he's going to turn into some stud in the NFL who's going to be, I go back to the Bucky Brooks, Daniel Jeremiah terminology of truck trailer. J.J. McCarthy is a trailer. He's Andy Dalton. He's Kirk Cousins. He's Derek Carr. He's Brock Purdy. He's not Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. If you're going to take a quarterback at number 2 in this draft, you cannot take the guy who is clearly the game manager. You got to take a guy who has a chance to be a game changer, to use Cam Newton's terminology difference there. So I just have no faith look, I think J.J. McCarthy could be a good quarterback. I don't think that the guy is a bum or anything, but to take your number 2 overall pick with Jaden Daniels or Drake Maye available, use that on J.J. McCarthy, I think that would be terrible. And I have said throughout this all season, it has been a disaster in D.C. And if they did this, I would just use I've been using our thumbnail titles, the title on the podcast. I would use it again our next episode after that happened. Disaster in D.C. to not get Ben Johnson or Bobby Slowick and end up with Dan Quinn, to not get one of the top 3 quarterbacks and take McCarthy at 2. It would just be an outright mistake. There's no other way to put it.
Well,
it's a mistake.
Yeah. And look at what Cliff Kingsbury did when he had Kyler Murray. What are you going to do with the guy who is much less talented than J.J. McCarthy? The funny part about this, and we'll get to a couple other picks in a second, we got a few minutes here, is do you remember when Alabama won a bunch of championships and it didn't matter because they looked at the quarterback, Greg McElroy and A.J. McCarron and Jake Coker, whatever his name was? It's like, they're not NFL quarterbacks. Now you're looking at, J.J. McCarthy just won a national championship. Yeah, he said down, said hike. It's not like he was the absolute game changer. Yes, he's a mature, younger quarterback who can come in and probably have a decade career in some form or fashion.
Yes.
Absolutely. His floor is higher than many. But
Derek Carr,
which is Derek fine. Carr, it's fine.
Yeah.
Baker May, I think Baker Mayfield needs a little bit more respect on his name at this point. I think he's a little bit higher.
Be like Baker, though.
Yeah, but J.J. McCarthy hasn't shown, what was the flashball memory from J.J. McCarthy? I can't remember.
Against Ohio State that he put over the defender's shoulder. That's the only thing that popped out. You know what I mean?
Maybe that was his Zach Wilson chuck down the middle of the field with nobody else on the field. That's the flashball memory. This is very Zach Wilson-y, what we're experiencing right now. I don't really understand it. Okay, go. A couple more picks he didn't like.
All right. So in the same vein, the Denver Broncos take Bo Nix at 12. Alex, you're out on that side of the country, so you probably saw more Bo Nix than I saw. And maybe this is my Titans bias talking, but I think Will Levis is a better player than Bo Nix. I think Will Levis is a better prospect than Bo Nix. Why is Bo Nix going 12? Are we really pushing quarterbacks up that high? He's older, and I just don't see it. I don't understand how he could. If you want to take Bo Nix in the second round, or maybe even the end of the first round, a team trades back in and takes him. But taking Bo Nix at 12, I would take Michael Penix over Bo Nix. What are we doing?
I wouldn't. Michael Penix had 4 season-ending injuries in 6 years. Michael Penix is fragile.
They're both they're both older prospects.
But here's the thing. So it's so funny how things are cyclical. First of all, quarterbacks can play to their 40. So being 25 when you come in doesn't matter. You get 15 years. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. And on top of that, the coach's job is a lot easier. It's not like hiring a salesman with a bunch of bad habits that you have to undo and then redo.
Right.
Bo Nix was the quarterback for one of the most prolific offenses we've seen in the last decade. Okay? He scored a whole bunch of touchdowns in the air, on the ground. So did Jaden Daniels. They did it. Okay? Neither of them are running quarterbacks. They have the ability to lean on that if the defense gives that to him. Bo Nix is bigger. Put it this way. He's what retroactively we thought we would have seen from Justin Herbert in college. We didn't see any of this until he came to the NFL. If Bo Nix can replicate 70% of this in the NFL, you may find that he's a top 3 quarterback in this class. I don't think him being old, dude, he can play for 15 years and be 40. Who cares?
Right.
It's not a senior in college basketball. He's not a running back. He's a quarterback. He's going to play till he's 40 if he's good enough. So I don't think being old is a slight. I think it's actually a positive. But I just don't know if his skill set will translate.
Right.
I don't know.
Right. Understandable. I just think it's too high. I just think it's way too high. 12 is the Broncos roster needs so much work. I think that would be a dangerous game to play. But Sean Payton has proven that he is going to do what he wants, and he's as arrogant and as pompous as he wants to be. So
one last question here, and this is not directly with this, but these are the rumblings out that Denver may be one to move up with Minnesota. They're jockeying for picks. If you're Denver, what's the better move? Drafting Bo Nix at 12 or giving up 2024, 2025, and 2026 first to move up into the top 4? Which would be more beneficial for this team if those two were the options?
Let me just say first and foremost, I hate both of those options.
Yeah.
So give me death. But I would trade the first 3 picks, because if I'm gonna take my pick on a quarterback, I'd feel like Bo Nix is a complete waste of a pick at number 12.
Right.
So if I'm gonna take my quarterback and I'm gonna get my quarterback, it may be more expensive, but it's at least gonna be worth it. It's like, would you rather have, a 95 Honda for $1,000, or would you rather pay $20,000 for, the 2024 version? Yes, one is much more expensive, but I trust it a lot more, and it's going to be at least worth my purchase. So
this is an 81 Honda. How dare you? Anyways.
Anyway, moving right along, that is going to do it for today's Thursday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. Great conversations about the draft, things to do. Make sure you guys go check out Locked On NFL Draft. They're doing great stuff over there. It's that time of year, so you don't want to miss out. But that's going to do it for me, Tyler Rowland, host of the Locked On Titans podcast, my co-host Alex Clancy, host of the Locked On Cardinals podcast. As I tell you guys every week, start your weekend early and stay safe out there.